on into another episode of DCU Daily. And today, as always, we start things off with news from Hollywood. We're going to get into some quick hits, and then we're going to talk about DC, of course. We had to talk about the 4th anniversary of the release of the Snyder Cut on Max, or at the time it was known as HBO Max. We'll get into that, of course. We have to talk about God of War. The TV series is getting a second season before the first one has even come out. That can't be a bad sign, can it? Of course, we have to get into other news like Tulsa King getting renewed for a 3rd season. What's going on with those Netflix movies? People say that, you know, they're watched by everyone on the opening weekend and then people forget about them, but the numbers say something else. So we're gonna get into that, of course. Daredevil, we have some more behind the scenes photos. We have to talk about Superman. Was there a screening? Did somebody talk about what the reactions were like? Jeff Snyder seems to have a scoop, but how reliable is it? I know John will probably have a few things to say about that. And of course, we'll have lots more beyond that as well. So to do that and so much more, as always, let's hit that news intro and get this show started, shall we?
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number 2.
All right, Mr. I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding. You're kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne.
I like that. You're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see chords.
Right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
What the needs now?
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
All right, it's time to dive into the news. Chris O'Donnell getting a new payday. We got Snow White projections for opening weekend. Captain America, its projections for where it's going to finish its theatrical run. Lots more beyond that. To do that, as always, I've got with me John. How are you doing today?
Still sick, unfortunately, but getting better. So if I still sound hoarse, that's the reason why. So apologies.
All good. Well, hey, as I've been promising, God of War, that's where we're going to start the show off today with the news. So, you know, if you guys remember, this news came out last year that they got pretty much the best showrunner in the business, especially when it comes to science fiction television or science fiction fantasy television, Ronald D. effin Moore. The man behind Battlestar Galactica, the man behind For All Mankind, the man who helped basically resurrect Star Trek back in the 80s. He is the one who has now signed on to basically be the showrunner for the God of War show over at Prime Video. And now recently he was talking about that show, and we obviously know that they're working on the 1st season, but they might be doing more than just working on the 1st season, because when he was being interviewed in a Katie Sackhoff podcast, so Katie Sackhoff has her own podcast, right? Battlestar Galactica, Ronald D. Moore, I just mentioned, like, you know, she was one of the stars. That's where she got famous from, and Ronald D. Moore was her showrunner for the entirety of that series. Now, she has a podcast known as The Sackhoff Show, and I've actually listened to it. It's quite a lot of fun. I highly recommend you guys go check it out if you haven't already. Go listen to the whole episode with Ronald D. Moore on there. Tons of great insight into all the projects that he's worked on, including Battlestar Galactica. But he was talking specifically about the upcoming series, the God of War show, and this is what he had to say about it. And this is from Ronald D. Moore directly. He said, "Right now I'm working on an adaptation of a video game called God of War. It's a big title in the gaming world that Amazon has ordered 2 seasons of. They've asked me to come in, and I'm literally in the writer's room working on that." So he just said it like off the cuff, but the key detail, of course, here is they have already ordered 2 seasons, not just 1. We're already getting 2 seasons right off the bat. John, what are your thoughts on this? Are you happy to see that they're so confident in this that they've already given a green light for not just 1 but 2 seasons right off the bat?
I mean, with how The Last of Us has gone, I can't blame like PlayStation Productions for like going that far and like selling it, and Amazon realizing that and wanting to see that success, but with them for God of War, and considering that Rings of Power is still going on for some reason. It's just like they committed to 6 seasons of that shit, I think it was.
The
So
amount
they're
of money
kind of
they
stuck
spend
with doing
acquiring that right, you know they're gonna they didn't want to do that for just a season or two. They spent like half
um
$1 billion just making the first
yeah.
season. So
Like it cost more than like almost as much or more than like the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy cost.
pretty
Um
much, yeah.
but so I don't blame them. I hope God of War is good. I might watch it. I mean, I don't know a ton about God of War. I know some people have liked the newer games, some people have not liked the newer games. I just hope it's a good show, and considering how much I look like Kratos, according to our fan base, I feel like I have to watch it. Um, I don't know. It just seems like a very like innately interesting show. It's kind of like Gladiator in a lot of ways. I mean, it really is Gladiator, but more fantastical. I think it was like one of the actually it's I think God of War is like kind of like what one of the sequel ideas for Gladiator was, where like he fights gods or something. Like that was like one of the sequel ideas for like Gladiator, like Russell Crowe's in the afterlife fighting gods to get to his wife and son or something. It was weird. Um, but so that's essentially what that is. So it's definitely like intriguing. Ronald D. Moore is the I only know him from Outlander, but I know of his like prowess. Worked on Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica is still beloved to this day. I
Probably
still
one of
need
the
to watch
best
For All
sci-fi shows of all
Mankind.
time. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so I have faith that he'll do it, but like at the same time, the way he's like wording it is like right now I'm working on an adaptation of a video game called God of War. The way he's talking about it, he's not saying it as like a fan. He's saying it
No.
as like a
It's
guy
just
who
another
got
project.
hired to do this,
Yeah, yeah.
which isn't exactly great. Um Now I'm not saying he'll do a bad job because he doesn't know it inside and out, but it's a little bit like not as it's not as like nice to see like a fan like helming it, and it's just a guy who's like, I'm gonna do this. I mean, I don't know shit about this, but I'll try my best. So that's like kind of like between a rock and a hard place, where it's like the dude is really amazing at what he does, but like how will he do with this IP that he doesn't know much about? So, you know.
Well, this is the thing though. Tony Gilroy, like these are some of the best writers in the game, but they're also not ones who come across as maybe necessarily overtly just fanboys of the franchises they're a part of, and yet they will give you some of the best, iterations of whichever franchise they take on. It's like I for one, I don't see him talking about it in a very what was it, like a neutral sense being a bad thing, because it's still Ronald D. Moore. Like his his record has been pretty spotless over the last 20 odd years. So yeah, I don't think it's gonna matter as much that he's not the biggest super fan, or maybe he's not talking about it like I'm giddy that we've got 2 seasons to work on. Oh my god, it's gonna be so awesome. I think it's just he's talks about everything with a very professional attitude, and he's not as excitable, I suppose, is one way to describe it. So I get that. Um, but yeah, hey, it's great to see that we are gonna get we're gonna get 2 seasons. It's already confirmed. I mean, it's one of the best video games that people are just over the moon that it's finally getting adapted to a TV show, movie, anything, beyond just the game. And they've got probably the best people in the game working on it. They had previously the creators of the showrunners of The Expanse working on it. They departed, and then Ronald D. Moore and his team came in. So, it's gone through a few creative changes, but I like where this is going. It's God of War. We now know it's going to have 2 seasons. Bring it on. I wonder how many episodes each season is going to have, but hey, it's been over 2 years since they announced it, and it looks like they finally have a direction where they're comfortable enough that don't just want 1 season, but they've already committed to 2. So that can only be a good thing. So we'll see how far that takes us. But in the meantime, John, we do have to talk about Darren Aronofsky. He's in talks to direct Netflix's Cujo.
Cujo.
Your thoughts? Cujo. It's a Stephen King horror novel about a bloodthirsty Saint Bernard. Have you heard of the book? Have you read the book? Are you excited about the idea that Darren Aronofsky is going to take this?
I have not read the book. I've seen the original movie. It's okay. It has not aged well, but it's pretty good. It's like middle of the road Stephen King adaptation. This is like, if this is confirmed, like this is almost as dumb as like him directing a Plastic Man movie. It's like, why? Like, okay, get ready for the most pretentious Stephen King adaptation ever made, especially after his last 2 movies, which were unbelievably unbridled fucking pretentious bullshit. So, I don't get it. Like, I'm just gonna assume that this dude is just so desperate for work after The Whale and Mother being like these weird fucking like indie movies that like nobody cares about anymore, that he's like, all right, I guess I'll direct a Stephen King adaptation. Sure. And I'm probably not gonna watch it because it's probably gonna be, for lack of a better word, dog shit. Not like the original
Black
was much.
Swan wasn't bad. Black Swan was Oscar nominated, but The Whale.
No, I know, but like his last couple movies, like,
but
he hasn't made a
I
really
understand
good
where
movie in
you're
years.
coming from, though. Yeah, I totally get that. By the way, Manos Time in the chat saying he's doing
I did see that, yeah.
a marathon there.
I didn't watch every single Ghibli movie. I watched all of the good ones and ones I thought would be good. I didn't watch like Earwig and the Witch, which is apparently fucking terrible. Tales of Earthsea, which is apparently really bad. I didn't watch Red Turtle because that was a co-production between Ghibli and somebody else. So I didn't watch that, and then I didn't watch something else. I forgot which one, but I watched the majority of them, and my favorite is I think I put it down as Spirited Away, like the kind of the easy one. I do love Kiki's Delivery Service though. That one was really great. Princess Mononoke, goated. Ponyo, surprisingly, I liked it more than I thought I would.
Fiona's been catching me up on the Studio Ghibli collection because I haven't really watched nearly as many.
Watch them before fucking Zaslav boots them from Max.
Fair enough, yeah. But you know what? Hey, as far as Netflix goes with Cujo, let's see if Darren Aronofsky ends up directing it. Netflix has got money to spare, and Darren Aronofsky is looking for another movie.
Well, I don't know about Electric State. That might have gotten rid of most of their budget.
Yeah, well, you never know. They did have money for The Irishman. Certainly a lot more money than the Alto Knights did to de-age De Niro, but we'll see about that this week. Anyway, controversy aside, as it says in the Hollywood Reporter, Snow White hopes to perk up the box office with 100 million plus global opening. So this is, of course, referencing the worldwide opening number. And so far, the first reactions are saying, hey, look, Rachel Zegler has done a great job in this movie, even though she's off type in terms of the casting because she's of Colombian descent. And, so people are like, oh my God, like, why didn't they cast somebody who was more in line with like what the character originally is? And I'm like, honestly,
Snow White, which is named after her fucking skin, but whatever.
I honestly, that part doesn't bother me personally as much. But as far as the box office goes, they are saying that it's going to debut to somewhere between 45 and 55 million domestically. And then overseas, you add up the numbers, it's going to come out to roughly 100 million worldwide. Now, 100 million isn't terrible, but it's also not the greatest thing ever. If you remember Captain America 4, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, When that came out, it debuted to like 150 some odd million worldwide, and we were like, that's a little on the low end for a Marvel movie. And obviously domestically, it started off at a much higher number than this. It was like closer to 100 million than this is, which is coming in at about half that. So, are you surprised that despite all the controversy, I mean, still $100 million global opening
Oh yeah.
isn't anything to scoff at necessarily, considering what
No,
we've
no,
been
no.
seeing the last few weekends.
I think it's just kind of I think it's a little bit predictable. Like obviously because it's like Disney is still a big name. Like most people are gonna be like, oh, Snow White, I'll take my kids to see this. Although people, you should be taking your kids to see The Day the Earth Blew Up because it's gonna be way fucking better and it needs the money. So go see that instead of Snow White. But I think it's yeah, like Disney is gonna make money. Families, it has notable names. Um, yeah, it's like Gal Gadot is barely an actress. Um, so it's. I think it'll just. I don't know if it'll be the worst of the remakes. I mean, I don't care about the remakes. I'm not gonna. Even though Lilo and Stitch looks like not the worst thing since Cancer, I'm still not gonna fucking watch it. I'm not gonna watch any of these because I don't care. But
I
if
mean,
people
it's
watch them and they like them and they make money, then great. Then cinema's been dead for the past fucking 10 years anyway, so it's whatever. If people enjoy it, then fine. What do I have to fucking say anything about that?
yeah. Look, I think as Manos Time saying, Rachel Zegler, the reactions are much like what Manos Time talked about. She's not bad in the movie. She's done a pretty good job. And you know what? That track. She's a great actress. She's not really even the movies. I feel like where the movies weren't the best. Her performances have been pretty good. That Hunger Games prequel that she was a part of, people were like, yeah, it's an uneven movie, but her performance was good. The West Side Story was fantastic, even though it really flopped at the box office. But she did a different. I mean, overall, that movie in general was just top tier filmmaking, Steven Spielberg. But yeah,
Yeah.
Gal Gadot has still got a bit of a limit in terms of just she's not a great thespian. She has limits to her capabilities as an actress, and I suppose that still shines through. But 100 million
Hello,
weekend worldwide,
no.
we will also get to that later. But like, hey, $100 million opening worldwide is not bad. I feel like the success of this movie really from there is going to depend on the word of mouth, right? Like it's if the audiences like it and they're telling other people to go see it, that's going to really determine whether this movie will actually end up making enough money to make its budget back and do well enough to go beyond the opening weekend and have a decent run at the box office. So we'll see where that goes. But hey, $100 million opening. Snow White comes out this week. It looks like you can already go see it in some places. You might have gone to see an early screening like Manos Time. Let us know what you think about it if you did go check it out, because we will review it later this week on Friday. Or if Liz hasn't had a chance to see it by then we'll probably wait to do the review on Monday. But until then, we do have to talk about a couple of movie trailers, John. The first of which is Materialists. Materialist is basically, if you watch the trailer, it looks like your standard love triangle rom-com it's starring Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and of course America's Daddy, Pedro Pascal. So America's Ass and America's Daddy meet up with Madam Web, and they're going on an epic love triangle, and it comes from, of course, the Past Lives director. This is basically her follow-up. So Celine Song, that's the name that I was looking for. You saw the trailer. What did you think about it? I saw the trailer, and I'll give you my opinion, but I want to get an idea of what you think about it so far.
Now, precursor. I didn't really care I didn't really care for Past Lives. I found it to be kind of boring, not terribly interesting. It just kind of felt like a whole bunch of nothing. With this movie, it just seems like a female version of Hitch, but artsy. That's kind of the most I can like. The cast is good. I like the cast. But I'm not gonna be seeing this. I didn't like the director's previous works. I don't really like rom-coms, and it just looks like Hitch, but more artsy and not nearly as good. So, yeah.
I mean, look, it looks to me it looks interesting. Here's the thing: I have a soft spot for rom-coms because I grew up watching a lot of Bollywood rom-coms back when I was younger, and so I'm all for a good movie that has a love triangle and it does a good job with it. Like honestly, there's a limited appeal to these movies these days, especially at the box office. A lot of these movies end up on streaming because the audiences want to go see something that is a big action spectacle. And or there's other niches like you go to see your horror movies and stuff, but rom-coms I think have unevenly suffered at the box office in recent years, where
Doesn't help that you have movies like It Ends With Us, which woof.
Yeah. I saw somebody, when I was flying back from London, I saw somebody watching it like the row in front of me, and I could just kind of see through they were watching. I'm like, there were a couple of scenes where I'm like, considering what's been going on and with all the lawsuits and stuff since, where I'm like, oh god, just watching that movie, just watching somebody else watch that movie made me feel uncomfortable. But anyway, yeah, past lives director Celine Song. This is her follow-up, Materialists. It comes out in June 13th. It's from May 24. Let us know if you guys saw the trailer and what you thought about it. It's got an A-list cast, and they shot it over the course of like a couple of months last year. It's set to release this summer. Maybe you'll go see it. I'm sure it's gonna counter programs some other big movies. But hey, you got Captain America, Mr. Fantastic, and of course Madam Web in a rom-com. So there you go. Now the next movie trailer we're gonna talk about. I'm like, why does this ad keep showing up? Oh my god, get the fuck out of here! You see that ad, right? Like that start. Like okay, I'm just.
Yeah, it's a
we're
little.
Just not gonna.
Anyway, we're not gonna just move on.
Adam Sandler returns to the golf course. Dude, I came across. Here's the thing. Here's how I'll describe what my experience with this. Right, I'm scrolling on Threads. I see it come up. I click into it. I watch the whole thing. It's Adam Sandler. It's happy. I could tell straight away this is Happy Gilmore 2. The trailer is finally out. It's a sequel to the 1996 comedy classic. I, for one, have never quite put it in like one of my all-time favorites list. This movie isn't like, oh my god, I grew up on this movie, I cannot wait for the sequel. It's my childhood. And yet I watched the trailer and the nostalgia just washed over me, and I just realized I caught myself having this like grin on my face the whole damn time. And I don't know, it's because like the trailer's edited, the music, bless you. Adam Sandler just being his old school because I'm like, it's to maybe at a more basic, more primal level. I guess I've been wanting to see an old school Adam Sandler movie that I haven't seen in a while. Like he started doing stuff to win awards for, and then he's been doing random like Netflix stuff that doesn't make any sense. But I'm like, I just wanted an Adam Sandler movie that feels like it was made in 2003, and this feels like it's that, except obviously it's 2025. We know that Shooter McGavin is back. We know you got Travis Kelce in there
too.
Dude, the Ben Stiller cameo was hilarious. He's like, "Oh my god, he's in there!" Like that scene, I was like, that was me. Like I was pointing at the screen, like DiCaprio and Once Upon a Time.
I was gonna say
Hollywood.
Peter Griffin, but that works too.
Well, there you go. Yeah, and then Bad Bunny's in there. There we go. So.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's in there too.
What did you think about this? It's Happy Gilmore 2. We know this has been coming for a while, but the trailer's finally here, and now we have a release date for it too. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's great. Like it's like Happy Gilmore is probably one of my more favorable Adam Sandler comedies. I've never been a huge like Adam Sandler fan. Like I've watched a couple of his movies. I love Uncut Gems, but in terms of stuff he's like directed and shit like that, it's like not great. But I like the guy because it's like everyone has said like Adam Sandler is like one of the nicest dudes, and like he gives zero fucks about anything. Like he doesn't.
Dude,
like
remember that Oscar bit he did this year? Like Liz wants
that was great.
Like intro. Loved it.
Yeah, that was fucking great. Like, oh, okay, I'm not dressed for the Oscar. You're too good for me, Conan. Now you're too good for me. Anyway, yeah, it's just it just looks like a good, decently funny movie, and even if it's like not great, it'll probably be like at least a few good laughs. And I just love it's just like Adam Sandler just it didn't need a sequel, it didn't need one, but like I'll take it. Like it looks decently funny. Yeah, good times.
And of course, you got Julie Bowen in there as well. Oh god, the Shooter McGavin scene! I can't wait for that. We've already started seeing a bit of a hint at what that might look like. Yeah, this looks.
Should we eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
Yeah, and then the Ben Stiller thing. Yeah, again, just fantastic stuff. We got Figure Drawing in the chat, by the way. Hello, Figure Drawing. He has joined in. Manos Time still going off in the chat, and then Varkatna. My favorite rom-com Manos Time is You've Got Mail, and then there's a few other. I mean, at least in the Hollywood side of things. And then I can list off a whole series of them, but right off the top of my head, I think You've Got Mail is a pretty good classic one. But hey, you know what? It's Adam Sandler. He's back at it again. And it just feels like, for all the Netflix movies that he does, this is maybe the one that everybody wants to go see. So Netflix knows what they're doing with this. And we now know this movie's coming out soon. I believe they announced the release date. So let's see. I kind of forgot what it actually was. So maybe the article. That thing is everywhere. July 25th. And I'm going to scroll past that ad. So July 25th, you can go. It's going to be the biggest month of the year for movies, right? Because you got Superman, you've got Jurassic World, you've got Smurfs, you've also got the Fantastic Four, and now you have Happy Gilmore. So it's gonna be a busy month at the movies, whether you're staying at home or going to a movie theater. Adam Sandler, Happy Gilmore 2. Can't wait. Cannot wait. Give me more. Give me at least one more trailer. I want at least one more trailer before the movie comes out. But hey, you know what? Something else on streaming that just got the green light is season 3 for Tulsa King over on Paramount Plus, and this is just one of the few, or I guess one of the many. It's one of the many shows that Taylor Sheridan writes and directs and produces and stars in, and basically.
I gotta say, okay, I'm sorry.
Paramount
We talk about how James Gunn doesn't get sleep. How the fuck does Taylor Sheridan get any sleep? The man is like the showrunner of like 17 different shows. Like,
dude, not only this. So I was watching Lioness season 2 the other day, and I kind of binged it over the course of 2 days because I've had some free time to recover after basically just having a marathon run for the last few weeks. And I was like, in the first episode, I'm like, is that Taylor Sheridan? It took me 5 minutes to realize that, oh god, he's in the show. Like, he's not like in every episode, but the dude was in like half the show, and he wrote pretty much every episode, and then he directed half of them, and he was starring in half of them, and of course he's involved with like 5 other, what the 1923, 1883. Why am I forgetting what was? It's all of these. What
okay, so in terms of the stuff that's like,
somebody tell me the name of the. I totally forgot the name of the OG show, but that kind of
Yellowstone.
Where Yellowstone, the whole Yellowstone universe. There's another season coming out of 1923 soon. So
we have another season. Well, we have I think this is going to be the last season. Actually, it's like I think it's 2 seasons and then that's it. But then you have Landman, which got renewed.
That got renewed.
Yellowstone just ended. Is Lioness getting renewed, or is that?
I think so. I mean, I certainly hope so. It was a great show.
Okay, so in terms of the stuff that's like Mayor of Kingstown, Tulsa King, Lioness, Landman, that's 4. He's gonna be doing like, and then like the amount of like upcoming stuff is another Yellowstone spinoff, 1944. The Madison, and a 6666, whatever the fuck that is, Fast. Does this man sleep? Does he sleep?
I don't know.
Guys?
And he directs and writes everything. And he's a living, breathing cowboy if I've ever seen one. That dude is, yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, I guess if James Gunn can do it, then so can he. He's literally the hit maker at Paramount. Like, Paramount Plus wouldn't have half the shit that it has if it wasn't for Taylor Sheridan. They've completely bought into him. And Tulsa King, I've seen a few episodes, and honestly, I'm like, you get pulled in real quick. Because, of course, it's got
that's
Sly
one of the
Stallone
shows my
in there.
parents watch. I just told my dad that it's
So,
getting renewed for season 3, and he's like, "Oh, awesome." My parents
Yeah.
really like the show. They think it's very good.
I haven't
And
checked
I don't
out
know if
Landman
both my
yet,
parents
though.
watch it, but I know my dad watches Mayor of Kingstown, and he says
Yeah.
that's really good too.
Yeah, I mean, and that got delayed because of obviously the big accident that Jeremy Renner had. But like, the new season came out last year. So, and by the way, we got Man of Steel Magnolias in the chat and Enterprising here as well. Hit the like, folks, as Enterprising is saying. But yeah, hey, Tulsa King back for a third season. It's another one of those shows where you tune in and you're hooked. It's that whole thing of like people thought that the Western was dead.
And
Just
then
go to
Taylor
Paramount
Sheridan's
Plus.
like, hold my fucking cowboy hat.
It's every big, yeah, it's crazy. He's attacked this thing.
Well,
from,
they're
like, all
to be fair, they're
angles.
mostly like neo westerns because they take
Neo-Western. No,
place
no,
in modern
absolutely.
day.
Yeah,
Some of them
yeah.
are like more old school westerns, like 1923,
1883.
1883.
Right.
Those are
right.
more like old school westerns, but most of the Yellowstone, Hell or High Water, in terms of its films, that's more so like neo westerns because it's contrary to those conventions of the western, and it's in a modern setting. So,
Right.
yeah. I'm being technical.
No, but hey,
saying.
look, it's still it works. It clearly works. There's an appetite for it, and it's also one of those things where he's doing stuff that's different. It doesn't feel gimmicky because they're different enough that it doesn't feel like you're doing FBI, FBI International, FBI Most Wanted, FBI Sydney, FBI Miami, FBI whatever. Like it doesn't feel like half of those weren't real, but like still, like it doesn't feel like that. Like Tulsa, but you can kind of feel like maybe one day Lioness could run it, like the characters from that show could run to Tulsa King characters, and like because they could all be in the same Taylor Sheridan universe for all we know. We haven't seen any crossovers as far as I'm aware, but yeah, Tulsa King, the latest of the Taylor Sheridan, all the children
His
of Taylor
cinematic
Sheridan.
universe.
The cinematic universe of Taylor Sheridan over on Paramount. Season 3. But hey, I did see this article today. This is actually from What's on Netflix, which is, as the title of the website suggests, is a website where you can check out everything and anything Netflix. And one of the writers on there, Frederick Durand, he basically was doing a bit of an analysis on this myth, as it were, that Netflix movies don't have longevity. They quickly fade into obscurity because we talk about things like Red Notice and other movies like it, where they come out, they do big numbers, but then they kind of fall off a cliff. People forget about them because they have stopped talking about them. Everybody's seen it. But he was like, let me actually look up the numbers. Is this actually true, or is this just a myth that most of us have just believed because people have been talking about it for a long time? And he did some digging, and this is what he found. So he mostly focused on American movies because that's really where like a lot of the bigger Netflix movies come from. Like most of the high budgeted movies on Netflix tend to be American movies, like Red Notice or The Electric State, stuff like that. So he said, look, let's just start with a general overview. Of those 276 American films released before 2022, they accumulated approximately 3.8 billion complete viewings over the course of 2 years, 3,842,300,000 viewings in 729 days. That's a lot of viewings. That's not million. That's 3.8 billion. Now that is an approximate number, but when he talks about it, like breaking all of that down, it's insane when you consider how many hours that is. That is 5.27 million per day, 220,000 per hour. That's the amount of time somebody's watching these movies. 3,660 times a minute over the course of 2 years. So not just like the first couple of months. So if you just go off of that data alone, John, what are your thoughts on the idea that, hey, Netflix movies, they just do well when they first come out and then they fall off a cliff? It seems like if you actually look at the numbers that Netflix has put out and on all the reporting, people go back and watch these movies over the over the course of the years that they have been in release. So does that mean that the budgets that they have for them are justified? Like when they're spending something like 300 million on The Electric State, like people will keep watching him for years to come. And Netflix obviously has a huge subscriber base. What are your thoughts on this whole research?
Here's the thing I want to ask. Is Netflix fudging the numbers though?
I don't think it's in their I don't think it's in their benefit to do that. Like it wouldn't make sense to me that they would fudge them, especially fudge them that hard. So by the way, thank you guys for all the compliments in the chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so I don't know, like I guess, because it's like it's based on the idea of people don't want to fucking go to the movies. So it's like, all right, I'm stuck at home. I got Netflix. All right, let's fucking watch this bullshit again. There you go. Like it's, you know,
It's gonna be one of those things where people, I think in general, you hear people talking about, oh yeah, you know what, Netflix movie, saw that last week, everybody talked about it, now it's done. But just because it's not making headlines anymore, if you go by the data, it doesn't mean these movies aren't still being watched by millions and billions of people, quite frankly. So yeah, hey, don't count these Netflix movies out. It seems like they've got a model. They know their numbers better than most of us do. And so when they're making the kind of investment that they're making in movies like The Electric State, even if it doesn't do very well with the critics, it will still do well with their audiences, which is why they're continuing to do them. I mean, I guess that kind of answers the question that a lot of us have, is like, why do they keep investing in these like subpar movies? Well, it's because people keep watching them. That's why. It's like they keep making money. So or at least it keeps bringing in subscribers and keeps the ones that they have already engaged with their platform. And that's all you can ask for. You want to reduce the churn
oh
so
hell
that people
yeah.
are not leaving your streaming service every month. Now, speaking of streaming, John, there's this other report that came out today, which I thought was pretty fascinating. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on it because I feel like, you know, when we go really deep into the numbers, we can get lost in the details. But just in general, if you read the headlines, streaming nearly equaled all of linear TV in February, and that's despite the Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl, of course, is counted as like linear television. It's on, you know, TV, like you can watch. It's not on Netflix or anything. But despite the Super Bowl, streaming still almost equal the linear TV numbers. Now, broadcast and cable accounted for only about 44% of usage all month. And when it comes to the percentage for streaming, it was 43.5. They were almost even. And that's with, you know, Super Bowl, the award season with the Oscars and Grammys, and it was Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary. But despite all of those really, really big events, all the college football games, streaming still managed to pretty much match all that. So you can only imagine streaming is probably going to have a better time the rest of the year because all of these big events on TV have already been done.
I mean, March
So
Madness isn't going to even be close to reaching those numbers
yeah.
either. So,
But are you surprised? I mean,
no,
because we talk about how streaming has basically taken over people's like viewing habits, and
yeah,
nobody's watching
everybody's
cable
cutting the
and,
cord now. The
you
only
know,
people that
broadcast. So.
that still haven't cut the cord is like because they don't have every sporting event available on streaming. That's literally the only reason why my dad still has cable is because he wants to watch sports, and that's fine. It just, you know, that's like pretty much the whole thing that's like holding people together because it's like, okay, you have the movie channels, but like you could go to a movie, news, lots of streaming services for that. So it's just like nothing is holding. There's nothing special about cable anymore except sports, and even that's like kind of dwindling because you do like I know Apple TV does some stuff, Amazon does some stuff. My God.
I mean, it's also on live
So
television, linear television. You get audiences now tend to skew on the older side because they're you know still tied into older cable subscriptions that they
traditional stuff.
yeah, and that they're not willing to get rid of as easily because that's what they're familiar with. Whereas younger people tend to be like, all right, I'm gonna cut the cord, save some money, just have Netflix or maybe have YouTube TV or something, and it costs you less than what you would otherwise be paying. So
Right.
yeah, and then
There's like
and then
Hulu Live, all that shit.
yeah, and then the amount of options that you have now, because you're starting to get live sports on these services. Netflix and Amazon are spending more and more money. Amazon's going to have NBA games soon. Amazon's also going to have NFL games. Netflix has invested in the NFL already, and they're going to
Yeah, I know.
expand that. So
I know Amazon has
yeah.
NFL and NBA, and then I think people are. I remember seeing something about hockey too. I think they're trying to get their hands on that.
Yeah.
Um,
By the way,
so
well, I mean, recently, the NHL just did its renewal like not too long ago, and ESPN still has a bunch of rights, but they're gonna launch ESPN as a standalone streaming service, which you have ESPN Plus already, but the new ESPN streaming service is gonna bring everything that they currently have limited to linear television, but also be available on streaming. So that's probably not gonna help that cause either. But they know this is what they need to do because a lot of their fan base has moved off of linear television. So that's where the advertising dollars are. It's on streaming. So that's where they're going to go. But Manos Time was asking a question about a Netflix story earlier that, hey, do people look at Netflix movies as movies, or they just degrade them by calling them Netflix movies? And to answer that question, I think it's a little bit of people like the idea behind it is, yeah, oh, it's a Netflix movie. Oh, it's just a Netflix. But I don't think that holds as true as it used to, because being just a Netflix movie doesn't necessarily mean what it used to mean 10 years ago. Like, it's not just a lesser version of a movie you saw in a movie theater with like a B list star that otherwise wouldn't have led that movie for a theatrical run. Like, they had all these movies like Michael Pena and Frank Grillo back in the day, where they were just these like action thrillers where those movies would only really happen if they were being made for streaming, but they wouldn't put those movies in theaters. Now Netflix is making movies that you could put in a movie theater, like Gal Gadot, The Rock, and Ryan Reynolds all in one movie. They just put them on Netflix. So I think that perception has changed over time, but there's still a stigma around the idea of it's a Netflix movie, because in general their record with quality has been so bad. So yeah, when you do say it's a Netflix movie, like even Happy Gilmore 2, it's a Netflix movie, you do start to wonder, I mean, does that mean like it could have been
But then
better
at the
if it was
same
made
time, like fucking The Irishman is a Netflix movie. So
there's examples.
The Killer
there's exceptions to the
is a
rule,
Netflix movie. So it's like, well, there's some exceptions there, but it's just like that's what the old guys got to be designated to, because they don't, because like they're like, oh, you're old news. We don't want you making movies. Get the fuck out of here. So they're like, bye. And unless even big names are like, nope, we don't want you. We want new talent. That's why probably Clint Eastwood's like, all right, fuck this shit. I'm done. I'm out of here. I don't want to fucking deal with this shit anymore. I just want to enjoy the next like 6 months of retirement, enjoying myself. But Steven Spielberg wants to seems like he wants to die on a set. So like that's what it seems like here. But yeah, it's a shame, but it's the reality.
It is, but hey, you know what? That's just something that Netflix is gonna have to work their way out of. The idea that if it's a Netflix movie that people just expect there to be less quality, that's on Netflix to fix. That's not something that the audience will, start to change that perception if they start making better movies overall. So with that said, though, hey, speaking of movies and going to see them in a movie theater as opposed to on streaming, NATO, no more. It's NATO no more. Theater Owners Organization has been renamed to Cinema United. Now, this comes just in time. We're 2 weeks away, less than 2 weeks away from CinemaCon. CinemaCon is the event that's put on by NATO, or what used to be called NATO. And basically, the reason why they're doing this is because everybody would not everybody, but like a lot of times they would get these phone calls with people confusing them with the other NATO, not the National Association of Theater Owners, but the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The political military organization, or mostly just a political organization. But,
right.
So I understand that this was something that they needed to do to kind of like differentiate, because especially nowadays with the politically polarized world that we live in, most people are like, oh, NATO, you mean that NATO. Nobody thinks of, oh, you mean the Theater Owners Association. No.
Right.
So I'm glad that they made this change. Now they're known as Cinema United. They have a new slogan, "Movie going is our mission," because they want to promote people going to see movies in a movie theater. And like I said, it comes in time before their biggest event of the year, which is they put on their own version of a Comic-Con called CinemaCon. So now it's like Cinema United presents CinemaCon, and this year it will be branded accordingly. And no longer will they receive phone calls from people thinking they're calling up the other NATO, because they're not going to be known as NATO anymore. It's a little bit similar to when the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, became the Motion Picture Association, because they didn't want to just be the American one. I get it. I mean, and so this is a branding exercise for the most part, but I also think it's something that's been overdue for a while. What are your thoughts on this? Just the change? Does it feel like this was the obvious thing to do and they just took too long?
The fact that it took this fucking long too is just insane to me, because it's like, you were called NATO for this long? Like, come on. Can't be that fucking stupid. Just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, Manos Time asking a pretty good question there. Let me bring this up on screen regarding CinemaCon, saying, how would you guys describe CinemaCon compared to Comic-Con. I feel like both have different goals, but it's still a blur. So here's how I would kind of in some, because you can talk about this at length for a while, for long time, but in general, the gist of it is this: CinemaCon is primarily for theater owners. They have press, people there, so you can get a press pass. You can just buy a ticket straight up. The ticket costs something like $1,500 a person, and that's even if you do get the press pass. And then of course you're gonna be going to Las Vegas, so your accommodations will cost you money on top of that. And so it costs you thousands of dollars to like attend this thing, unless your company's paying for it. So I'm sure like there's journalists from Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline that get to go where it's paid for as a company expense. I will look into that in the future, John. Not this year, unfortunately. But
don't fucking bankrupt yourself for a CinemaCon appearance.
No, I have thought about it. I thought because this is the reason why I think it could be something that's worth it potentially for, let's say, for one of us or both of us to go, would be at CinemaCon. You can get entire screenings of movies that have yet to come out, because the whole point of CinemaCon is movie studios go there to tell all the theater owners, including the big chains as well as all the mom and pop ones, and the smaller, the mid-size movie theater chains that you probably haven't heard of necessarily unless they're in your neighborhood, but they form a big part of the cinema audience, basically the exhibitors, all the movie screens around the world outside of like the AMC's and Regal and all the other big ones, basically Odeon. But you get to see stuff that doesn't then just get put on the internet. Like at Comic-Con, the difference is a Comic-Con is an event where anything that they show you at Comic-Con pretty much is guaranteed that it's going to end up online. People will take video of it. It's going to be public knowledge. It's a fan event, so anybody can go there. Whereas at CinemaCon, you need special credentials. They don't just let anybody in. You need a press pass, and then you need to pay for your ticket, or you need to be like coming in as part of one of the theater chains, or you need to be a part of like a company that owns movie theaters, or you're there because you're there with one of the studios. So when we have been talking about how they're going to potentially do a Superman screening, which Warner Brothers has done this in the past, Disney does it all the time. I feel like they're probably going to play either all of Lilo and Stitch this year, or they're going to do a screening for Thunderbolts. So one of those two movies they're probably going to do a screening of. And I'm not going to be surprised if one of the other studios does the same, where they'll present to you, these are the movies that we have coming out to movie theaters in the coming year, especially this summer. And then, by the way, here's a screening, so sit down, relax, and watch movie XYZ. So you also get behind the scenes looks, you get special, inside looks with whether it's featurettes or trailers or just like, in just the making of the movie, stuff that they don't put out online. So the big difference is the exclusivity between CinemaCon and Comic-Con. Whereas I know there's some stuff at Comic-Con that you don't end up getting on the internet after, that you can't find on YouTube. But by and large, most of that stuff is public knowledge. Whereas CinemaCon, the expectation is not the same. Now, granted, if they do a screening for a movie, chances are the word will spread, and then somebody will say something about it. So if Superman does play, for example, for the people who attend it, we will probably get some insight from that. But that's the big difference. It's one is basically, it's like a business event, and it's mostly for people who are in the industry, who either work for theater owners or are a theater owner, or they're part of the studios. Whereas, Comic-Con is for the fans. So that's the big difference. And of course, that's why this is an event that's done and organized by Cinema United. So yeah, it would be hard for just anybody to show up and buy a ticket to CinemaCon. It's also a lot more expensive than Comic-Con. And so, and that's partly the reason for that, is because they don't just want anybody to be able to kind of buy a ticket and show up there. So there you go. Long story short, yes, like Enterprising saying, Comic-Con feels inclusive, CinemaCon feels exclusive, and that's by design. And that's by design is because there's two very different purposes behind these events. One of them is because the movie studios want to basically pitch to all the theater owners, like, these are the movies we're bringing to you in the coming year and the months ahead. Whereas CinemaCon is that, but then Comic-Con is where the studios are talking to the fans. Like, this is what we have for you guys. We love you. We want you guys to go see this stuff. Here's a trailer. They're rarely, you do get screenings of things like TV shows and every once in a while a movie at CinemaCon, but it's rare. Whereas with at Comic-Con, whereas at CinemaCon, you do pretty much get at least 1 or 2 movie screenings every year, usually 2 movies that are only a couple of months out. So that's why people are speculating that Superman will get a screening this year. So I'm excited to see if that does happen. And yeah, maybe in one of the coming years we might go do that. It's gonna be big expense for us, so we'd have to be able to justify it. You guys need to show up and watch and hit the like button and drop those super chats so we can go out there and get you guys all the insights from CinemaCon. But nonetheless, John, we do have to move past the news segment, and we now have to talk about the quick hits. So it's basically the news, but except we're gonna be doing it at twice the speed. Hopefully
allegedly.
So allegedly. Well, you know what? That's the goal, and we've got the music up.
And when there's a hole, there's a goal.
As a great man once said, a complete unknown gets a Hulu streaming release date. John, it's the movie that got Timothée Chalamet his SAG award, but now the movie is set to release on Hulu on March 27th. Will you be watching it?
Nope.
It's got, of course, Monica Barbaro in it as well, from Top Gun Maverick. But you know what's funny? Like at the Oscars,
oh, that was her.
That wasn't her. No. This is the thing. In the movie, that's her. But at the Oscars, he was sitting next to somebody who I was like, wait, did Monica Barbaro?
No. I was like, why does she look so familiar?
Yes,
that's why she does.
She's from Top Gun. Yeah, she was in Top Gun Maverick. She was also in that movie, it was like a TV show on Netflix, the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where they both work for the CIA, but they don't know that, and then they find out and they have to go on a mission together. I think it was a TV show, or maybe it was a movie. I don't know. But it was on Netflix. But yeah, I was like, but watching the Oscars, I'm like, who's Timothée Chalamet sitting next to? Did Monica Barbaro get a lot of work done on her face and stuff? And then I realized, no, that's freaking Kylie Jenner, because of course it is. Questionable choices, Timothy, but like whatever. Moving on, The Sex Lives of College Girls gets canceled after 3 seasons at Max. Are you surprised? Did you ever check this show out? I've only seen clips from the show, and I saw like a couple of episodes because it was really taken off for a while, but I guess the audience fell off and they're like, 3 seasons is all we need. What are your thoughts on this?
Never heard of it until now.
All right, cool. Well, Ron is in the chat. Hello, boys and girls. Hello, Ron. Enterprising saying the leaks from CinemaCon usually can increase enthusiasm or dampen it. Aquaman 2 had a rough time at CinemaCon, for example. That's true, but it also isn't as expansive. Like the word of mouth doesn't spread as much as it does from Comic-Con, because there's not as many average fans like us there. Like it's mostly people who actually work for studios or movie theaters. But anyway, moving on. Of course, as you guys know, we're on the road to WrestleMania. So how about we have a roast of WrestleMania with Tony Hinchcliffe set for the April 28th event in Las Vegas. That's the weekend when WrestleMania will take place. It's a 2-day event. Of course, WWE has a whole host of other events around it, including now we know there's gonna be a roast of WrestleMania, where they're gonna have Tony Hinchcliffe like basically headline, but then they have other comedians and wrestlers show up like Sami Zayn, The Miz, Braun Strowman, Paul Heyman, the Hall of Famer himself. Are you somebody who would be interested in checking this out, John?
I like Tony Hinchcliffe. I think he's funny, but nope. I can tell you there's going to be so many jokes about Vince McMahon. It's just going to be Vince McMahon jokes the entire time about how much of a horrible human being he is.
Just how much, exactly. I'm so interested in seeing how much of a guardrail they put around.
I can't wait for the memes. I will say that. I can't wait for the memes, because Tony Hinchcliffe is fucking brutal when he wants to be. So yeah.
Yep.
The memes are going to be
Tom Brady
good.
was
I will
something. Say that. And this can hopefully this is just as good. So we'll see. All right. Adolescence, by the way, is a show that is completely taken off on Netflix, and it has hit 24.3 million views in just 4 days on the streaming service. It's only behind The Electric State, which has shot up to the very top of the list on Netflix's top 10 at 25.2 million. So it's only got 0.9 million less views than The Electric State, which is obviously a big time, movie that has A-list stars in it like Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt. But Adolescence, I mean, it's a show about like a kid who gets accused of murdering somebody, and they've got like these one-shot episodes where it just feels like it's all stitched together, like this one continuous shot. And I've been seeing stories about it all day, but are you surprised that the show, it's a British show, the British know how to do a murder mystery really well. So are you surprised to see this show is doing as well as it has? Have you checked it out? Has this come across your desk at all so far?
I haven't heard of this show until right now. But I know that's Stephen Graham, right? That's Stephen Graham?
Yes.
Okay. I like him. Apparently he's a huge asshole, but I know he's a great actor. Speaking of The Irishman.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Well, Enterprising saying he slept for 12 hours on his day off. That's a baller move right there. I agree with your logic and your way of life. Snowfall. You remember that show on FX? It was about a young man who got dealt into the cocaine business and became one of the kingpins. And I think it was somewhat based on real life events. Now Snowfall, the show has been done on FX for a while, but it's now getting a spinoff. And the spinoff starring Gail Bean and Isaiah John has got a pilot order from FX. Is this something that will interest you? Have you heard at all anything about this show? Would you care to check it out?
I haven't heard of the show until right now. I don't know who either of these actors are either.
Well, fair enough. You know what? The show will have a niche audience. I mean, or at least the audience that watched the original, the Snowfall. They're gonna probably want to check this out because they're probably just weaning off the show. And when you're addicted, you're addicted. So you gotta feed the addiction. And so now we go from Snowfall to the spinoff. But hey, moving on to some other news. This is something that I just found pretty hilarious when I came across this. Apparently, Universal Music dropped the ball on Drake, saying, "Hey man, you lost a rap battle, and we should not be held liable for the hyperbole." Basically, Drake, if you guys are aware, has sued his own record label, Universal Music Group, who is also the same record label for Kendrick Lamar, and they've both been releasing these diss tracks. And apparently, Drake was like, "Well, they basically favored Kendrick Lamar and compromised Drake in the process." And Universal Music was like, "What? Hold on, bro. This is, you lost a rap battle. Just take it and move on, man. It's over. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with us." Are you surprised that Universal Music is like,
they just want to sweep this under the rug as much as possible. They just want to sweep, because it's like, guys, we still have this. We still got to go after like YouTube channels that use 3 seconds of our music on a channel that has 12 subscribers. We got to focus on that for right now. We can't focus on this shit. So like, Drake, shut the fuck up. And then, all right, time to ban more content. So yeah, that's not shocking. But it's just like, bro, just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I just found this to be funny. I'm like, just Drake taking L's. It's funny.
He's taking L's from everywhere,
including his employer. Oh my god, this ad is still away. God damn it.
Well, it's J.J. Abrams, so that makes sense.
And there you go. Okay. First look at Duster, the new show from J.J. Abrams and LaToya Morgan. It's an action drama series. It stars one of his former Lost stars, Josh Holloway, alongside Rachel Wilson.
I didn't know he still had a career.
He does. He was in like the Alien Invasion show on USA Network, and he's in a couple other things. But yeah, well, hey, we got the first look at this show. It's one of the few things that J.J. Abrams has managed to actually produce through his overall deal, the first look deal, or whatever the deal was that he had with Warner Brothers Discovery, because this show is going to be on Max, and it's one of the few things that he's actually produced under that deal. That as soon as David Zaslav came in, he was like, "I'm slashing that thing in half. We are not giving you that much money to basically make crap, but here you go. At least this is one of the shows he's working on." Are you excited, interested, or even at the slightest care for this show, Duster?
Nope.
Cool. All right, moving on to the next thing. Pedro Pascal is a busy man. He's booked and busy. America's Daddy. He's doing a million different things, from Freaky Tales to The Last of Us Season 2, The Materialists, which we talked about earlier, Fantastic Four, coming out in July. And of course, beyond that, he's signed up for Ari Aster's Eddington. He's going to be in the 2 Avengers movies, Doomsday and Secret Wars. And of course, he's got the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. It just feels like it's Pedro Pascal's world and we're living in it, doesn't it?
Yep.
Cool.
America's daddy.
America's daddy. There you go. Well, we'll get to see him several times.
America's sweetheart, America's daddy, all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. In the meantime, Ty Castor from Yellowstone fame He has now joined the cast of the live-action Spider Noir series. He will play a secret character with a special connection to a previously announced character. So he's gonna play a character. What are your thoughts on this? Are you a fan of his, and are you excited to see him joining the show?
I don't know who he is, but I'm excited for the show.
Cool. All right, well, moving on to the next thing. Production has wrapped on season 2 of Apple TV Plus's Monarch show. Of course, this is the Godzilla show, which ties into the larger Godzilla cinematic universe, the Godzilla Kong cinematic universe, the Monsters universe, as they call it. And season 1 was fantastic, and now season 2, it looks like they've wrapped production. Is this one that you are watching or have watched? Are you excited for the second season?
I've heard it's pretty good. I didn't realize it got a season 2, but good for them. So that's good.
Steven is just throwing out some lyrics and rhymes in the chat. Speaking of which, hello, Steven. Mural for Daredevil Born Again has been spotted in London. I mean, I was in London not too long ago, literally last week, and dude, the amount of street art in London is amazing. And here's one from the show, Daredevil Born Again. Have you started watching that? Has someone convinced you?
No.
Well, hey, look, at least they're doing all the viral marketing they possibly can. So there you go. Speaking of Daredevil Born Again, we have new photos of Deborah, Ann Wall, and Charlie Cox on the set of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. What does this tell you or not tell you about Season 2 of the show that they're already starting to film, John?
That her hair is really fucking weird. Yeah. She looks like Mary Jane Watson instead of Karen Page.
Well, at least we know Karen Page is there, so unless she's a hallucination, it looks like at least it confirms that Karen Page is not gonna die in season 1. So there you go, something to glean off of these behind the scenes photos. Now, again, earlier we were talking about how Snow White's opening weekend is gonna be looking at about $100 million worldwide, and then we talked about how Captain America 4 had a much higher number than that, and that was considered pretty mediocre. Now it suffered a pretty bad second weekend drop, and since then it's just been limping along at the box office. But now we have some projections for around where it's going to finish off its theatrical run, because it's about to be out of theaters soon, and it looks like it's going to finish up with somewhere between $405 and $440 million at the worldwide box office. Now that's with a budget of $180 million. So we had talked about how this is kind of the range where it needed to be to just break even, or depending on the marketing cost, it might have still lost some money. But what are your thoughts on just the overall theatrical run for this movie? Do you feel like it just has been an overall disappointment, this movie, considering the numbers and also just the quality? Because I mean, I went and saw it, and I've talked about it at length in detail. There's a lot of flaws in this movie. They tried to do way too much with it, and for a Marvel Cinematic Universe that needs more hits, this was not one of them. I mean, are you surprised to see it not even hitting $500,000? It's basically doing Black Adam numbers by the time it comes out of the movie theaters.
Yeah, not very surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if this is higher than Ant-Man 3. I feel like this is lower than Ant-Man 3, so damn, that's rough. But hey, Captain America 4. Chris O'Donnell, Robin, our good old live action Robin. Chris O'Donnell has found another cable TV show, or actually broadcast television show, to join. He's now in talks to star in 911 Nashville over at ABC. Of course, he for the longest time was a part of NCIS Los Angeles. He will now be potentially in this 911 spinoff. And he will play a fire captain in the first responder drama. What are your thoughts on this? Are you still a fan of Chris O'Donnell's work?
I don't really watch him all that much, but it's nice that he has a good career outside of,
he's carved.
People think of him as Robin
for himself. So
yeah,
that's great.
So
well, hey,
that's cool.
Good luck to Chris O'Donnell. 911 Nashville, the latest spinoff in the 911 franchise. All right, now this is the last quick hit for the day, and it talks about how Saw 11 is basically stalled amid all the intersquabbling. So it turns out the creative team behind the scenes just can't seem to get their shit together. They just can't get on the same page between the writers and the studios. It's like they submitted the script, the writers did a long time ago, and they haven't heard anything since May of last year. So it's stalled somewhere at the managerial level, but it looks like there's been zero progress. and it's going all the way back to spring of last year, John. So do you feel like this franchise is pretty much going to be dead at this point, considering they can't even figure out where to go next with this?
I mean, it seems like that case. It seems like they resurrected it and then killed it like just as quickly. I mean, I'm not really a big Saw franchise fan. I watched the first movie because I was curious, and I was surprised with how much I really liked it. So there's that, and but outside of that, I have not had any investment in it as a franchise, so I don't really care. But I know a lot of people are upset by this because they think it's like amazing and great and stuff like that. But sorry to all the fans out there. But I mean, everyone said like Saw X was so fucking good. So
I've seen it. It's not as good as some people make it out to be. It's okay. It's okay, but it's not great. So yeah. I mean, and Ron saying the franchise has nothing to offer. He's done with it. Yeah, dude, I'm done. Like I'm like 10 movies in. It's kind of like the Fast and Furious. I'm gonna be honest with you. The last couple of Fast and Furious movies, for the biggest Fast and Furious fan, or one of the biggest fans in the world, there's not much else that it feels like the movie makers have to say, and the same applies for Saw. And you know what? Quite frankly, this franchise never had a ton to say. It was always this horror, gore, just well, how many other gruesome ways can we find to kill people? And you know, you're eventually gonna run out of ideas. Maybe they just need to let this thing kind of like simmer and die for a while before they do a full-on reboot, because I think 10 movies in, you've had your fill. Like,
well, it's technically more than 10, because there was Jigsaw, and then there was the Book of Spiral like spin-off. So I think it's 12 technically, 13 maybe. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
That's fair. I mean, hey, Enterprising saying that, hey, I was okay with the first 3, but the franchise felt like it was going off the hinges fast. Yeah, no, exactly. I agree with you. I think back in the day, the movie franchise had a couple of good ones, but then once you got past like the first 3 or 4, it went downhill fast. And that's what usually happens with these movies, right? Like, is you run out of ideas. Like, how many different ways can you slice that bread, right? That's kind of what it comes down to. And yeah, Ron saying Captain America 4 is a complete flop. I wouldn't say it's a complete flop, but yes, financially it is a flop. So hey, and it looks like Saw 11 is not even going to see the light of day. So with that news, we come to the end of the Quick Hits, John. So that's going to be the news and the Quick Hits for the day. We're going to hit a wrap on the music. Let us know what you thought about all that news. Which piece of news were you most excited about? Are you excited to see Happy Gilmore 2? Are you excited to see The Materialist? Which of these projects are, you know, that got renewed? You have, of course, Daredevil season 2 photos. Karen Page is not dead yet, apparently, unless that's her Force ghost in the photo, or in the second season. We talked about Landman got renewed the other day. Now Tulsa King has been renewed for season 3. Monarch coming back with season 2. So a lot of stuff going on in the world of television. Of course, in the world of the movies, we have got stuff going on as well. We have got a couple of new movies coming out. Snow White with this opening weekend projections at $100 million. Let us know if you liked any of those news items, and if you're going to go see Snow White, or if you are interested in Materialists or Happy Gilmore 2, drop down in the comments below. Hit that like button while you're at it. But we, of course, are not done yet, because now we have to talk about the main event, and that is, of course, DC. So welcome on into another episode of DCU Daily. As always, I am your host, Dan, and we've got a lot to talk about. We also have your questions today. We have some Q&A stuff we're going to dive into. But to do that and so much more, as always, with me, I've got John. John, which of the stories that we have on deck are you most excited about today?
None of them. None of them.
Cool. Well, I appreciate the honesty, but let's get started. So it's not a very eventful news day on DC, but we do, have some of your comments, which I think that's going to be my favorite part of the day. But we start off with Dan Mora posting on Instagram some of his new work. These are going to be basically original covers that they're doing on the 6th printing of Absolute Batman, the 5th printing of Absolute Wonder Woman, and the 4th printing of Superman or Absolute Superman. And Dan Mora, of course, has done a lot of artwork recently. We saw the one that he did with James Gunn and Superman, one of the alternate covers of one of the upcoming comics leading to the summer of Superman. So he's been doing a lot of the Absolute comics as well. Honestly, this particular variant of the Batman costume with the symbol, it doesn't feel like it's just one big blob because the pointy parts are more like defined. So I kind of like this particular cover, this variant cover. And then when you look at some of the other ones, they look pretty interesting. This Superman cover, I'm like okay with. Not my favorite, but I'm okay with it.
It looks unfinished.
Does it? You think so?
Like, it
maybe,
looks like the
details.
hands don't look finished, and
Yeah.
the suit looks real. Like, the logo looks really awkward. It kind of looks AI-ish. Like, it doesn't totally look right. It looks AI or unfinished.
Well, it looks like it's the black suit. But then also, look, I still think this one, Absolute Wonder Woman, is probably
Yeah,
the
it's
best
great.
thing
Her
to come out of
face
this.
looks a little bit too cartoony. Like, it doesn't fit with the rest of her body, but still good. Still really good. I mean, the cloud sword is fucking just baller.
Yeah.
Just insane. Like,
That-
all right.
That's the best part of this. Honestly, the moment I saw the design for Wonder Woman, the fact that they gave her this sword, this is probably one of the best things they've done with the character, and that's might be the biggest thing to come out of the whole Absolute franchise. And I hope that some level of influence from this makes it into the DCU, especially like the design, the W, and everything. Yeah, I like this version of Wonder Woman. I've loved it from the first time, like we saw those artworks like a few months ago last year. And yeah, Dan Mora talking about some of the covers, so you guys can go get this at comic book stands near you coming up. And you've got the DC Trinity, the Holy Trinity, right there. I actually like all three of these covers better than some of the artwork that we have seen in the past. It's still, I mean, hey, by definition, it's absolute, so it's a little over the top, but I'll take it. I think this version of the Batman one looks better than a lot of the other ones we have seen, especially the logo on the chest. So there you go. Now,
Yeah, I don't care what anybody says. They're like, but it turns into a battle axe. Okay, it still looks like fucking shit. Like, okay. It looks like a brick with spikes on it.
Well, speaking of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, the Holy Trinity, and of course, the rest of the Justice League, it was 4 years ago today that Zack Snyder's Justice League was released on HBO Max. And according to Variety, it was the most streamed film of 2021. The Wrap reported it as the second most pirated movie of that year. And it also
How do you
became the
have
most-
those numbers? How the fuck do you have those numbers?
I remember
Really?
they were reported by various different outlets. I do remember reading these and they were legitimate like sources, but then the Wrap, of course, reported it like the second most pirated movie of the year. It also did become the most pre-booked film on India's Book My Show, which sounds crazy to me. And I mean, of course, at the time, it was the second that was the most pre-booked film, and then it racked up 320 million views. That's insane on China's Migu Video within just 7 days, of course, because HBO Max doesn't exist in China, so that's where people saw it. Now, the former Warner Brothers president, Priya Dogra, called it a global phenomenon, but we know, of course, and Sarnoff and everybody else who was in charge of DC at the time, they were like, well, this is, the finale of Zack Snyder's, Justice League's trilogy. And we have had all the controversy since. We have had the Snyder Bros who still want to hold on to the idea that this universe will continue somehow. Obviously, we have a new DC universe on the way in just a couple of months. But hey, I can go back and watch this movie, appreciate it for what it was. It's 4 hours long, so it takes one hell of a commitment to get through, or you might need to do it in a few parts. But hey, it's been 4 years. I mean, does it feel like it's been 4 years to you? Because to me, it feels like it was still only a couple of years ago. It's just, but it's been a while. I mean, you look at all these actors, most of them have moved on to so many other different projects. I mean, Henry Cavill's filming 5 different things for Amazon. Jason Momoa's back in the DC world, except as Lobo. Gal Gadot's, of course, in Snow White. Ben Affleck is doing a bunch of other projects. The Accountant coming out this year. Ezra Miller's probably, Homebound. I think Ray Fisher just signed on for the next movie that Ben Affleck is directing. So, all these actors have moved on. Zack Snyder's doing different things. But what are your thoughts on just it's been 4 years since the Snyder Cut came out?
I mean, I have my issues with him. I have said that his version of Justice League is probably the best out of his DC movies, which isn't saying much. It's still an overly long fucking wank fest in regards to the story
It's
because
too
it was
long. There's a few, that movie could have been
it's
half
way
an
too
hour
fucking long.
shorter. Like,
It's
definitely
way
could
too
have
fucking
been.
because here's the thing. I know why he did 4 hours because he initially said it was supposed to be 3 hours. But the fact that he's like, okay, you're giving me $7 million and $70 million and I could do whatever I want. Cool. I'm gonna give it an extra fucking hour because fuck you. So I can kind of see him doing it out of spite because he was fucked over and he's like, now I'm getting a chance to fucking do it. All right, fine. So do it. Unfortunately, to everyone else, we have to fucking sit through this shit. But like I've seen so many people that are like, yeah, the Joss Whedon version, it's worse, but at least it's short, so I'm gonna watch that one instead.
Dude, the Joss Whedon version unfortunately feels like such a violation to good film or film in general.
It's a Frankenstein's monster. It doesn't feel like a movie.
It's and yeah, it just thematically, tonally, all over the place. Yeah, there's just a lot of weird moments just flashing in through just as I talk about it.
Yeah.
This movie wasn't. I don't think Zack Snyder's Justice League is his best work for DC. I
No.
still think Man of Steel, in my opinion, is
To me,
the
I
best
think
of the bunch that he
Watchmen is the best out of
Watchmen is
his.
great. I personally prefer Man of Steel, but that's a personal choice, right? I think for me, Man of Steel, especially when you come to talk about the DCEU, I think Man of Steel is the better movie of the three that he did. Batman v Superman kind of falls in the middle somewhere, maybe. And yeah, I mean, Justice League was good. His version of Justice League. I just still would love to see, maybe in an alternate timeline, if they did end up letting him finish what he wanted to do theatrically, a 3-hour version of the movie, like what would that have looked like? Because there was definitely at least like 40 minutes of stuff that we didn't need in the 4-hour version that we got, that you could have easily cut out and gotten a better movie. And not to mention that they had a IMAX frame, which I'm like, dude, you can see the edges of the lenses and the corners. This was not meant to be all seen. And like, I hate it when they do like, oh yo, it was shot for IMAX. I'm like, if it was actually shot for IMAX at 70 millimeter primarily, you wouldn't see the lens hood on the edges of the frame that you're working around. You would have shot that so you can.
Everyone's like, we shot it for IMAX,
yeah,
and then
the
Christopher Nolan is just like pathetic.
Because when Christopher Nolan shoots for IMAX, he shoots for IMAX because
he'll break the fucking camera, which he did twice on The Dark Knight.
Totally.
Back when that was like,
I mean, that wasn't even
really
entirely shot in IMAX, but yeah. Well, I mean, that was early days.
That was super early days because those things were fucking expensive too. He was such hot water.
They're heavy. Like those cameras are huge because you're running 70 millimeter film through a freaking camera. But yeah, I mean, all the framing in this movie was clearly done for like your more traditional widescreen aspect ratio for movies, because you could see there was way too much headspace above. There wasn't any useful information. You could still crop it and get most of the information. Like you could put it on your TV and like do one of those zoom ins and you wouldn't miss anything at the top and the bottom of the frame. Like there wasn't anything useful there. So yeah, and then you know what? Technically though, Ron, it did technically win. What was it, like best theatrical or audience engagement or achievement?
It was like
or something
best
award?
audience engagement at the fucking Oscars, and it's like, all right.
Sequence, yeah. We got Elite Easy in the chat. Do you bleed? Yes. It's still, you know what? I actually
Nice
like
to
that
see you,
sequence
Elite Easy.
because the "Do you bleed" moment is still one of the most hype Comic-Con moments of the past like 20 years. Like that reaction when they played that Comic-Con BVS trailer is still unmatched by most other things that have happened at Comic-Con. And yet, of course, the movie itself was, disappointing for a lot of people. Ron saying, Dan, at this point, you would have to teleport to a multiverse to see a DC Snyder continuation. Yes, I would, because I don't think there's any chance of that happening in this universe. So, Tony Ray saying, for me, Zack Snyder's Justice League was heavy metal with no fun. Yeah, I think Tom Holkenberg, like Junkie XL's score, was a little over the top. Like every time Wonder Woman comes on screen, you see the like that whole thing is like, oh no, like it was way over the top, and especially because it was the same notes every single time.
It kind of reminded me of Dune a little bit. Oh
yes,
like it just
exactly. It was that before Dune did it, and I guess did it better or worse depending on your opinion of it.
I don't know. Nothing's gonna beat that original Toto soundtrack. Like, say what you will about the David Lynch movie, he had Toto. That's just baller.
Also, remember in the worst part of Zack Snyder's Justice League is easily the part where all the townsfolk sing some kind of like hymn or whatever when Aquaman's going out to sea, and we have to sit there and awkwardly just watch them do this. It's like, and I'm just like, Ben Affleck somehow kept a straight face through that whole sequence and walks away. Like, that did not need to be in the movie. There's no reason that we needed to see. I mean, even if they started doing it, cut the fuck away from it like 5 seconds later. And instead, in that movie, you sit there for 3 minutes and like the lady's like curling up and smelling the sweater and they're singing, and it's like, do we really need that? Like, it's not. It's do we really need that? Like, come on now. Yeah.
Yes, it shows the cinema. It shows the cinema.
It's just some editor needed to tell Zack Snyder, man.
Hi, Elise. Sorry that we had to put you on blast for your old comments, but they were great. And we were talking about Justice League, so Ezra Miller made sense. So we had to bring it up.
Yep. Oh god. Well, you know what? It's been 4 years since Zack Snyder Justice League. The Snyder Cut came out. It was unprecedented in terms of a fan movement leading to something like that, happening. It was the most unprecedented thing where fans got something, renewed or brought back since the fans did it for Star Trek, the OG Star Trek, after it was canceled by CBS, or it was NBC way back in the day in the 60s. So yeah, in a social media world. But hey, you know what? The Warner Brothers executives learned their lesson, because they went from, give us Zack Snyder's Justice League to continue the Snyderverse hashtags, and it just never ended. So, but here we are, 4 years later. The movie is still available for you to see on Max. You can get it in physical copy. They're still making merchandise, and so there's still an audience for it. So if you're a fan of it, then power to you. If you're not a fan of it, then you've got Superman and a bunch of other stuff coming out from DC soon. In the meantime, we're going to move on to talking about Superman. Now, John, this is something that we have sort of already talked about before, and it seems like Jeff Snyder, of course, our favorite insider, he is sort of piggybacking off something that we discussed a while ago, and I'll let you explain the source of this, because there was a rumor going out that, maybe the Thunderbolts and Superman, they all had these like the same runtime, like 2 hours and 20 minutes listed on a movie theater chain website. And I don't know if it's just a coincidence that Jeff Snyder is saying that, hey, Superman's current runtime is roughly 2 hours, 20 minutes, or if he's got actual firsthand knowledge of this, or
most likely the former.
Misplaced information. What are your thoughts on this? And again, can you just kind of explain to us like the source of this?
So I don't remember what movie theater chain it was. I want to say it was like Cinemark, not one of the big ones. It was one of the smaller ones, where their default runtime on their website was 2 hours and 20 minutes. It was the same thing for Mission Impossible,
It was a
Fantastic Four. Placeholder, that's the word for it.
Yeah.
Placeholder. So he so that's what it was, and Superman was one of those. But it's like, okay, it seems like, yeah, this might be real, but I don't think it is. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it's 2 hours and 20 minutes.
That's about where you would expect it to be for a movie like
it,
this,
yeah,
right?
like, but the thing is, I expect more of a weirder runtime, like 2 hours 20 minutes. That's a very succinct. I think it would be like 2 hours and 17 minutes, or 2 hours and 23 minutes. 2 hours 20 minutes, right on the money. I'm not saying that that's like totally out of nowhere, but it's less likely than, and he does say roughly, but even then, 2 hours 20 minutes, it's just suspicious that was the same exact runtime that was shown on that movie theater website like some months ago.
All the different movies that didn't have
and that placeholder one. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. I'm like, if he said like it's roughly 2 hours, it's roughly 2 hours 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'd believe that more. But the fact that, damn, all right, slice of life. All right, damn, bro, calm down.
I want all of the smoke.
So
injected into my veins.
So yeah, I think if he said like it's like I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't believe anything out of this guy's fucking mouth, but like, I'd be more willing to believe that, okay, 2 hours, 30 minutes, I could see it. But like the fact that it's suspiciously that placeholder runtime that was for all those movies, including Superman, that's kind of sus to me. That's a little sus.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it could be a coincidence, but like Elite Easy saying 2 hours, 20 minutes isn't bad. Slightly shorter than Marvel's Eternals. You know what? I do not want to make that comparison, but like, yes, it's not unprecedented for a comic book movie to be like 2.5 hours or roughly 2.5 hours long. Ron saying it's long enough time to tell a good story, but short enough to not be annoying. Agreed. Because again, if
the
it's 2 hours, 20
Batman.
minutes,
Hello.
if it is 2 hours, 20 minutes, then you're talking about probably 10, 15 minutes of that are just credits, opening credits, closing credits. So the movie itself is probably just 2 hours and some change, which is, it could go by pretty fast. And most movies, if they're paced well enough, 2 hours is enough time to tell a really good story. You don't need 3 hours. I mean, yes, but the Batman was as long as it was, because the Batman was just slow. Like it took like Robert Pattinson 5 minutes to move across every room in the movie. So that helped, of course, extend the runtime of the film. I wouldn't be surprised if this movie comes in at under 2.5 hours, and 2 hours 20 minutes sounds about right.
I will say, Ron, I liked The Brutalist. I thought it was a very great movie, but I will say it did start to lose steam in like the last 45 minutes or so. It was a bit much, but even then, I still thought it was a great movie.
Yeah, I think Enterprising put it very succinctly, saying it's a decent runtime for a tight, efficient, well-executed story. And you know what? We agree with you on that. Of course, the actual runtime we won't find out until a little bit closer to the release, because we don't know if they've hit picture lock on this. Because until you get picture lock and then you've done all the credits and you've got your soundtrack in place, until that happens, we don't get the official number. And I feel like they might still be putting some finishing touches on this. So we may have to wait another month or two, unless we do get the screening of it at CinemaCon. But even then, we have seen in the past, every once in a while, you get a screening of a movie at CinemaCon, and then certain things might get changed up by the time you get to the actual movie release. I think the last Spider-Verse movie had that, where they made some changes to it from the time that people saw it in an early screening to when it actually came out for everybody else to see it. So even if it does play at CinemaCon, that might not be the finished version of it, even though it would be 99% finished probably. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the actual runtime is. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. But at least right now, 2.5 hours or more or less around that, 2 hours, 20 minutes, not bad. Speaking of Jeff Snyder, John, he also shared recently some early reactions from a Superman screening, supposedly saying that David Cornsweet delivered a great performance as Superman, and the film balances humor and drama well, with genuinely funny moments while knowing when to be serious. So we've talked about this in the past. It seems like when Jeff Snyder has talked about this movie before, he's referenced like a third or fourth layer removed kind of a source, where it's the friend of a cousin of a brother of a mother of the person who actually saw the movie telling him what they thought about it. So do you feel like this is coming straight from somebody who actually was in the room watching it, or do you feel like this is still a couple of people removed from it and Jeff Snyder's just giving us like something that kind of has gone through a few rounds of telephone before it made it to him, and now he's telling us what he has heard?
Or he's just making up bullshit like he usually does.
Or that. I mean, what are your thoughts on?
I mean, here's the thing. When it comes to happier news, I want to believe it. I do genuinely. This sounds too perfect. He's great as Superman. The jokey moments were there, but
it's also
very
very generic. I mean, like we have heard that many times before. James Gunn has been shouting it off the rooftops. Oh my God, you're not gonna believe how great this man is gonna be as Superman. So
yeah, so it's
really
like
surprising?
I want to believe it, but just like the X-Files, I want to believe, but like at the same time,
yes.
but at the same time, it's just like I don't believe anything out of this dude's mouth. I don't. Like, if it so happens to be true, awesome, but like it's a test screening. Also, is this about the same test screening? Because if that's the case, with how many fucking test screenings that this dude has reported, we're on like number 5 at this point. So it's like,
there's been that many test
I know
screenings with so
James
many
Gunn
people.
confirmed one of them for like a very small knit group of people, and I think maybe one other one of like regular everyday people who have to
Mhm.
sign an NDA, come in, what are your thoughts? What do we have to fix? But we don't know what happened. So like I feel like Jeff Snyder has been like, well, maybe I want my finger in my nose. Anyway, but I think it's just like too, yeah, as you said, it was too generic. It's too convenient. It's too vague. It just like it's kind of just saying too many perfect things that it's like I don't believe that either. I don't believe that. I don't think it's as perfect as like it's saying here. Do I want to believe? Yes, but I don't think it is. So I'm just gonna be like, nah, fam. I'm just gonna be like, nah, nah, shut up.
Yeah, it's honestly, to me, a lot of this is very generic. The idea of, oh, it's genuinely funny. Something being funny is so subjective that I don't care if you tell me it's genuinely funny, it may completely fall on deaf ears with me, right? Or like I might think something is hilarious and you might think, oh, that was corny, like, it was not good humor.
Right.
So humor is very subjective. It's the hardest thing to get right. So yeah, the genuinely funny part, or like it was very well balanced, and the new one to get serious. I'm like, okay, you could say that about most comic book movies that are well balanced, where they get serious at times when somebody's about to die, and then they do a comic relief sort of a joke. Like that's pretty common. That's like standard of, like, I could have wrote this up without having any actual firsthand knowledge of the movie, and it would have sounded legitimate, because there's nothing in this description that is specific enough or unique enough that it actually makes me believe, like, even if it was true, it still doesn't tell me enough to really make a judgment beyond what we already knew, which is like, hey, the movie looks good so far. The first trailer was fantastic. We want to see the second trailer. They're gonna potentially do that at CinemaCon, and we'll see where the movie is from there, because so far we don't even know what the actual story of the film is. We have been speculating. We know a lot of the pieces that are in the movie, all the characters and all this, some of the locations and stuff, but we don't actually know how things play out. We just have an idea. So with that said, guys, hey, I know you guys want to talk about more Superman, and we'll continue to do that, because now we have to move on to talking about your questions, your Q&A. We have brought in some of your comments, and we're going to talk about them, and we might even have a couple of bonus comments that John has hidden away somewhere. But if you're here and you're watching, of course, if you're new, you want to stick around. We're here 5 days a week talking about DC. Hit the like button. It's one little click for you guys, but it helps us out a lot and gets the show out in front of more people, and hopefully a bigger audience. But John, as we dive in to the comments, let's start off with the first one here. This is part of the Q&A session. You picked out the comments. Here's the first one. And this comes to us from our Ted Lasso episode, where we also talked about Superman cameos in potentially 2 other DC movies. The Main Man 2025 saying, I'm always asleep. Hope you folks are all doing well. So, not necessarily asking you a question or anything, but just,
But
the
yeah,
Main Man likes
I feel bad. I want to.
but
Here's the
often
thing.
he misses the live show.
I feel bad that he misses the live chat, so I want to, say like, hey, bro, we see you. We appreciate you. We love you. So don't worry, man. Even if it's after the fact, we still want to shout you out and appreciate you watching. Because we appreciate, yes, it's nice to have like a live interaction with people, but at the same time, we also appreciate the people after the fact. That's why we do these fan comments, because we want to show that that it's even. We don't have favorite children, so we don't have favorite viewers. So we want to say thank you watching the Main Man. It's okay that you're asleep. Get sleep. We care more that you get sleep, so you're nice and rested for your next day, for your job or schooling or whatever you're doing. So, or playing video games all day. I don't know what you do. So, we love and appreciate it, and we also love and appreciate this. I couldn't fit the entire comment here, but he was also like, I'm gonna try and stay up. It's like, no, don't stay up. Get sleep. It's okay. As someone who doesn't get sleep and always regrets it the next day, please get sleep. Please get sleep. That includes everyone here. Get sleep.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we appreciate the Main Man, of course, Lobo. We know Lobo is going to be making an appearance next year in the Supergirl movie. So, yeah, and the Main Man drops by, and whenever he's able to watch, whether it's live or otherwise, he's always leaving us a comment, and we appreciate it. So thank you for doing so. And yeah, if you guys are watching live,
I also,
we appreciate you guys in the live chat.
I think this is really funny. I don't trust the They don't compare it to the Guardians or the DCU. Definitely not real.
Elite Easy has got some banger comments today.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I hear you. Well, all right. Let's move on to the next comment. Right in the Q&A session. This comes to us from Kyle, who we see every once in a while in the live show, but oftentimes he's watching after the fact. So he watched our last DCU Daily episode from a few days ago, because we've been doing a couple of also curious shows where we tie in DCU Daily, but the last DCU Daily proper was last Thursday, and he mentioned World's Finest is definitely coming soon. I can feel it. John, what are your thoughts on this? World's Finest. Are we actually going to see that soon? Is that the next project James Gunn is prepping and writing now?
I mean, it could be. I would love to see a World's Finest movie. Just the two of them hanging out, not fighting, not beating each other up with sinks. That would be really nice to see.
Bleed.
I mean, James Gunn did say he's like, Batman might show up in other projects before his solo movie after Andy Muschietti. He's like, I want to do another movie in the meantime. Well, James Gunn's like, well, people want to see a fucking Batman, so I'm gonna fucking have him show up in another movie. So I think a World's Finest movie could be really good. Like kind of like bridge the gap between like Batman and Superman. Like have the Superman movie, have World's Finest, Batman as like kind of the main character, but like help Superman support it because we've seen this version of Superman, and then have a full-fledged Batman movie with Batman Brave and the Bold. So that could be awesome. I mean, James Gunn has confirmed it that we're going to be getting the two of them. He said, I can't wait for this Batman to be alongside David Cornsweet. I can't wait, blah, 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 blah. So he's talked about their team up and their kinship and their relationship like in the comics. So I can definitely see. I think it's coming. Maybe not soon, but it's definitely just like Nosferatu. He is coming. So I'll believe it when I see it. But
bury it.
there would be greatness.
Yes, I can't wait for World's Finest because we haven't seen that take on these characters. Maybe that could be the movie that makes the $1.52 billion that BVS was meant to do. So. I wouldn't mind seeing that, and it looks like James Gunn agrees with us, so hopefully we'll get that very soon. But in the meantime, we do have a couple of more comments here to get through. So here's the next comment. This is 3 out of 4 that we got to get into today, and this one comes to us from JB. JB is always watching, and so thanks for watching, JB. And he dropped this question the other day, saying, "I think it would be hilarious if Sadie Sink was introduced as Mary Jane as opposed to Zendaya's Michelle Jones character. They could even make a joke out of Peter Parker dating chicks with the initials MJ. That's a weird kink. Although I guess no one remembers Peter Parker or that he dated an MJ previously. That is a good point, though. So I like that he qualified that statement because that is true. Nobody knows that Peter Parker even exists. So, I mean, they can pull it off, can't they?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Sadie Sink as Mary Jane. I wouldn't mind seeing her as was it Firestarter? What the fuck out with Firebrand?
Firestar?
Whatever. Firestar. That was what it was. Black Cat, Kitty Pryde, fucking Gwen Stacy. I've seen all like these characters, or it could be like a nothing character. So it could be. I've seen Screwball. Like, all right. So I just think they wrote themselves into a hole where we just can't get Mary Jane ever, because they wanted to be funny and cute about it, where they're like, oh no, she's named Michelle, and then at the end of the first movie, they call me MJ because my name is Michelle Jones, and then in No Way Home they confirmed that her full name is a hyphenated name, which is Michelle Jones Watson. So it's very convenient that there just so happens to be an MJ Watson, unless they're doing some multiverse shenanigans here and she's a Mary Jane from another universe. Jean Grey was another one that they're like, oh, she'll be Jean Grey because that's who she was rumored to be.
So,
yeah, exactly. So I think whatever she's cast as, I think she'll be great. It's just like I think they wrote themselves into a hole where they just can't use Mary Jane Watson because they were like, well, if we name her Mary Jane, people are going to get mad because Zendaya is black and people are going to be like, there can't be a black MJ. So, so now we can't have like a more traditional
That feels
MJ.
like a really stupid reason to do that, though.
But is it? Look at the fucking internet, man. Like, come on. People complain about everything when it comes to race swapping.
People complain about everything, but it doesn't mean it's a good move. Still, I'm just saying.
No, I know. Maybe that's why they did it. Maybe that's not why they did it. I don't know. But I feel like they were like the only thing I could see is like multiverse shenanigans because it is part of the multiverse saga. And isn't it coming out? When is it? It's coming out next year, right?
It comes out next year. It's basically gonna be between the two Avengers movies because like
Doomsday
comes out and then that comes out.
I was like,
the next movie is Avengers: Secret Wars. So.
I was like, maybe if it's after, because I forgot when it was coming. If it was after Secret Wars and they do in fact soft reboot like the world, it's like, oh, looks like Mary Jane Watson is this character now instead of, but that's not the case. So I think it'll be either a multiverse Mary Jane Watson for some reason, or she's just going to be another character. Like I don't think she's going to be Mary Jane. It would just be, it just wouldn't make sense. So I could see Gwen because I mean Bryce Dallas Howard's a redhead who dyed her hair blonde for the movie, so not the first time that's happened. And ironically, Kirsten Dunst is a blonde who dyed her hair red to play Mary Jane. Very ironic. But yeah, I think whoever she is, I think she's a good actress. I think she's attractive because I got into like a discussion with somebody like how he's like, this fucking chick's ugly. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, what the fuck?
Objectively, not the case. So
anyway,
yeah, come on.
But I like her on Stranger Things. I think she'll be a good addition. Whoever they decide to use her for, whatever it may be, I'm excited for the movie, and I just hope Cretton can do a better job than John Watts.
Yeah. I mean, Elite Easy wants to see a Euphoria Spider-Man crossover. I don't think Disney wants that.
If they do get Black Cat, please, for the love of God, get Sydney Sweeney because that's just too perfect. I don't care how old she is. Perfect.
Yeah. No, hey, I wouldn't mind that either. Enterprising suggesting potentially Firestar because he thinks Spider-Man and his amazing friends, which is where I think Firestar comes from as a character. So Ron was asking the question. Firestar could be it. We talked about it actually on yesterday's show, the possibility of that being the case. But Elite Easy earlier had a pretty good point about the previous comment, the world's finest. Maybe instead of doing that, we get Public Enemies instead. Like you got to have that sequence where James Gunn keeps promising they're both sitting at a diner booth and then having coffee together, like how it should have ended sort of a moment. Yeah, but what do you think about the idea of maybe instead of World's Finest, we get Batman, Superman in a Public Enemies movie?
I wouldn't hate
Superman
it.
does get arrested in the new movie, so I'm like,
I wouldn't hate it, but it's just like I want to see something new than just a straight adaptation of something, you know. I would like to see them in a diner. Like I would like to see like the cafe thing. Like that's cute, and I feel like James Gunn would be aware of that and do that. But I don't want them to be wearing their costumes like in the he shorts. I want to see them just as like their normal civilian identities, and they're just having coffee because like that's how you make it work. So yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. I just don't want Public Enemies. It's not a bad story. Like I liked the animated movie. I haven't read the story, but I've watched the animated movie. It was pretty good. It just I would want something that's not like that huge.
I hear you.
Just like something like the Batman Superman movie. Like the animated Batman Superman movie that was like 3 episodes of like the crossovers between each show, and that was melded together into one movie. So do something like that.
No, I agree. Also, Elite EZ suggesting no, she's not MJ. She's actually Rue. Well, there you go. Or Gwen or Felicia.
Felicia.
Enterprising. Dude, can you imagine she is like the she plays the chick who like lives across the hallway from Peter's new apartment and just brings him banger food and then he doesn't appreciate her. But except in this universe, Tom Holland Spider-Man is like, I know where to go instead of like going.
That's not the only thing you swoon for, Elite Easy. We know we have the receipts for it. So
Yep. There you go. Oh, Madeline Klein was going to play Black Cat. There were rumors, but nothing of late. So she was, of course, in that Knives Out movie. The second one, was it? She was in Madeline Klein was in that one with Batista. Yeah. Yeah, and then Elite Easy is saying there's 3 episodes of World's Finest called Part 1, 2, and 3. So there you go. All right. Well, moving on to our last comment of the day. This one comes to us from Hello Baby 6151. Is that Lenny? Is that I think that's Lenny actually. Anyway, he or she. Well, if it is Lenny, then she says the chapter I'd called God. The chapter 1 is called Gods and Monsters. So where are the gods, John? Where are the gods? We haven't even heard much of anything about Wonder Woman. But so
well, why? I don't know why you would think that Halo BB is her, but I don't know.
Isn't it because I feel like I've seen comments from her and her username comes in as that? Because I know the username versus the display name could be different, right? That's why JB comes as anyway. Go
Whatever.
ahead.
I mean, if we look at the movies, we got Superman. That he's kind of a god. I mean, he's compared to a god a lot of the time. There you go. The Authority, you got Apollo, who's essentially gay Superman. And then Jack Hawksmoor kind of has like god. He's like the harbinger of cities. Like he can control cities. So that kind of has like a godlike power over an environment.
Although the Authority is sort of on the shelf for now. So
no, I mean they're still going to come out with it with season chapter 1. So it's still going to come out soon. Then you have Supergirl that's kind of feeds into the Superman debate of like him being like a god, while Supergirl is kind of the same way. Swamp Thing and Batman Brave and the Bold don't really have gods. Swamp Thing kind of has like he is the leader of the green, so I can kind of see that like maybe be godlike, but I don't think anything like that. Then you have Paradise Lost. I mean, we have exactly, there you go, enterprising. Paradise Lost, Wonder Woman, that involves Greek gods, literal gods. And then, you could also maybe make an exception for like lanterns or something like that, because that can involve some stuff. But and then obviously we're gonna have to talk about the monster part. I mean, Swamp Thing, Amanda Waller, fucking monsters.
Whatever the threat
Creature Commandos.
The Lantern Show, Creature Commandos, obviously, yeah.
So so I think there's gods. I think being specific.
It's also doesn't have to be literal.
It doesn't have to be literal. Like it's like there's godlike entities like Superman and Supergirl and Apollo, Midnighter. I think can kind of count there, although he's kind of more devil than god. But then you have like Paradise Lost, which is literal gods, so it's not like totally out of nowhere. So I think we have plenty of gods in here.
Yeah, we already
as well as non-confirmed villain characters that could be categorized as gods.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't know who's behind the mask in Superman, that mystery character. So
yeah,
Cersei's already in there. I'm trying to think. There's probably going to be more new characters coming up in the second season of Creature Commandos. We don't know who the. Well, I'm guessing there might be more than just Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr. being the primary antagonist of Peacemaker season 2. And we know that season is going to be more magical and mystical than the first one. So maybe we get a little more of the gods and monsters in Peacemaker season 2 coming out this year. So yeah, I think there's plenty of room for gods and monsters. We already know a few examples of that, and then we know there's much more coming our way. So I wouldn't be surprised to see other ones that we haven't even talked about. Whatever the lanterns are facing, like Enterprising saying, exactly. Ron saying, yeah, gods might refer to the influence the heroes will bring. Exactly, because the DC heroes do feel like godlike entities, right? That's always been the case, and that's not lost on James Gunn. Elite DZ saying, they're so cute together, Ron. Mine definitely have you seen them on compete lip sync battle. What are you guys talking about? Who's cute together? You're talking about are you still stuck on the Spider-Man conversation, Elite Easy? Or maybe you're talking about Clark and Bruce. I don't know. even Ron's confused by the question.
I think he's talking about Zendaya and Tom Holland
Oh,
on
okay.
Lip Sync Battle, which is when he was singing Umbrella and he was in drag, and then I think Zendaya was singing some rap song and she was also wearing male clothes. So yeah.
I get that. Yeah, no, hey, they are cute together. I mean, they're one of the it couples of Hollywood these days. So there you go. But yeah, I mean, look, in Creature Commandos, we had plenty of humans, we had monsters, but we also had Cersei, a god. So that's been the only project that DCU has put out so far, and we got basically all the boxes checked off right there. And we know even in Sergeant Rock, we might get something that's a little, more larger than life than the soldiers in that World War II story. So, oh yeah, Zendaya was Bruno Mars in that whole sequence. Okay, cool. Lip sync battle. Nice. Well, hey, you know what? That was the last comment that we had for today's Q&A session. John, I think that covers it, right? We brought in a couple of bonus comments along the way as well. So as always, we recommend you guys leaving us a comment down below. We know you're watching live, and when you are watching live, we'll bring your comments in while we are live. But if you guys don't check us out live, like the main man sometimes doesn't, or the watcher, he's been missing in action for a while. I wonder if he's still watching. So hey, let us know down in the comments below what you are most excited about coming up in the world of DC. And of course, while you're at it, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you're new, because of course we are here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking about DC. And of course, we also talk about everything else that's going on in the world of Hollywood, including Marvel, Star Wars, all the other franchise things, Taylor Sheridan and everything he's doing at Paramount, his whole cinematic and TV universe. So we'll be back tomorrow with more DCU Daily. Of course, the latest from the world of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and whatever else James Gunn has in store for us. We're getting closer and closer to CinemaCon, less than 2 weeks away now. So I am so excited. Hopefully we get confirmation that we will get a trailer at CinemaCon, because I think it's about time. But any news that comes out between now and tomorrow, we'll be sure to bring that to you. John, I'll see you tomorrow on another episode. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Watch something DC related. Come back and talk to us about it. And we'll see you tomorrow on another episode of DCU Daily.